Today I am trying to win a standard regional qualifier at my local game store, Paya Lebar Games Haven. So standard is a 60 card constructor format, and it's how I met people like Paul and Yang Ying at the local game store playing standard. So I'm just going to show you guys what an RCQ is like here in Singapore. So I was running a bit late, and for these tournaments they actually start with a player briefing followed by the round 1 pairings, and then you just immediately get into round 1. So as soon as I arrived, they basically just started with the player briefing.
Format will be standard, as you all know, and we have a total of 27 players today. So that means this is going to be a 5-round Swiss tournament, and it will be a cut-off to top 8 single elimination.
So the deck that I chose to bring for this tournament was actually the 5-color domain deck, and it's basically a control deck. It's ramping into big finishers like Herd Migration and Atraxa, and it packs a lot of board wipes as well in interaction. But at that point in time, I'd only been playing the deck for about 2 or 3 days, streaming it live as well here on the channel. But I was pretty confident. I knew it was a good deck. I knew how it wanted to play. So yeah, immediately we got into round 1. And straight away, I didn't know what my opponent was playing. He played some Simic lands, and then the first spell that he cast was the Jace, the Perfected Mind. Okay.
I'll mail you.
Okay.
For 3? I'll draw a card.
3. So it turns out my opponent was playing a banned control list, so his deck had counter spells, and he was making Phyrexian Mites with Toxic from Mirax. He had board wipes as well, and he had card draw from playing up the Beanstalk. Oh, okay, sure. I'll play Depopulate. And so, despite my best efforts to try and control the board, play some board wipes, removal, and even land some haymakers of my own, I eventually just lost by having 10 poison counters from the Toxic Mites. And of course, we are playing best of 3, so we move on to sideboarding and then game 2. Both of us ended up taking 1 mulligan, so going down to 6 cards. And because of that, both of us had a pretty slow start to the game. Nothing much happened. He played Beanstalks, I found my lands, and then I landed a Chrome Host Seed Shark. I'll play a Shark.
Oh, this one I really care. This one. Yeah.
He immediately followed up with the Wandering Emperor, and then he told my Shark to get lost. Yep. Eventually though, I was able to play an uncounterable Atraxa. Atraxa? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But it got removed immediately, and then he played his own Seed Shark. I played my own Beanstalk. I removed his Planeswalker. He was drawing a bunch of cards, and I was finding cards with Atraxa as well, and then removing his stuff. And then I blocked here with Atraxa, and it got blown up with a Ganjo. So I just played Herd Migration, summoned 5 beasts, and then he played his third up the Beanstalk. And at this point he played Nissa, and he was basically just building up an army. He decided to remove one of my beasts, and I got rid of his biggest creature, which was the Nissa Horror token. And then on my turn, I slammed my own Nissa. Paying full price.
Price. I got no negate.
Yeah. So crucially here, he only had 2 mana open, and he knew that I had a negate in hand because it was revealed from Atraxa. He still played it out, trying to counter Nissa with a Disdainful Stroke, which I negated. So I hope the math is right. Everything gets +5.
5 times 3, 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more than
Yeah. And right now I can do this because the judges have asked for a deck check for me and my opponent. The game 1 was pretty long for me. I think we were the last table. It was just a grindy matchup between 2 dirtily decks, which ended at 1-1. And yeah, as you can see, it's pretty packed. There are 27 players in total. So this is going to be a whole day event. The deck check actually took almost half an hour, and I will explain more later. But anyway, this is round 2. My opponent took 1 mulligan down to 6. So from the beginning, it was already quite clear that my opponent was on Rakdos Midrange or Rakdos Discover. He started off with the Deep Cavern Bat, and he took away my board wipe. But I was still able to ramp out and execute my own game plan. Even though he removed my creature and he played a Shieldred, I managed to get down the Archangel of Wrath, destroy the bat, and get back my board wipe. And then we basically just traded life totals. I kept my life total high because my angel has lifelink until I managed to get down an Atraxa. I traded that away with his Shieldred, only for him to play a second Shieldred. But then I found a Herd Migration and made my beasts. And he finally got his Discover on with the Appraiser. But all he managed to find was a Blood Tithe Harvester. So from there, I just played out Nissa, and once again, I did the ultimate.
6 times 5, 30, 33.
36, this is also plus 3.
Oh yeah, 36.
Yeah.
36 minus 9.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Okay, so my round 2 just ended, and unfortunately, my opponent got a game loss because of a deck error. So we're going to try and get the judge to say a few words about that.
So for Esmond's game, unfortunately his opponent had some cards that were discernible from the rest, as well as the fact that I think he forgot to sideboard from the previous game. So after looking through his deck and investigating a little bit further, we just gave his opponent a game loss.
Thanks. Yeah. So a game loss is not a match loss. A game loss is just 1 out of the 3 games in the match. So we did go on to play the second game, which I won. So that was a 2 out of 3. So that's why it was very quick. But yeah, things like this happen, I guess. This is the first time I've ever seen it happen or had it happen to me or my opponent. So I guess it's just part of the more RCQ competitive rulings. Round 3. And I knew this was the mirror match because I was watching my opponent play in the previous round. So it is very common for these mirror matches to go down to see who has cards left in the library, because both players are drawing a ton of cards, both players are getting a lot of lands out of the library, and there's a lot of board wipes, there's a lot of removal. It's just very grindy. So this was a 45-minute game, and eventually I played a Herd Migration. He didn't have a board wipe. I blew up his Leyline Binding that was removing my Nissa, and once again I ultimate Nissa, gave all my creatures plus 11 I think, and trample, and just swung for the win. I got 87 damage lah.
When it comes back,
So after sideboarding with just over 5 minutes left on the clock, we went into game number 2, and I kept the 2-lander. I did not expect this game to finish. Unfortunately, he had a really quick start. He just ramped up with the Topiary Stompers, and he got to the 7-land threshold very quickly and started attacking me. I did have a lot of removal though, so I took care of the dinosaurs, but he just slammed down an Atraxa, refilled his hand, forced me to use my board wipes to remove it, played another Atraxa, forced me to use another board wipe, and at that point I was down to 6 life. He got back one of his dinosaurs, attacked me for 4 damage, put me down to 2, so all he needed was the Archangel of Wrath to finish me off. So that ended in yet another 1-1 draw, and at this point my record is currently 1 win and 2 draws. And in order to get into the top 8, you usually can only afford to have 2 losses. And a draw is it's usually just as bad as a loss. So I really had to win the next 2 games to have any chance of qualifying for the top 8. My opponent in the next round was playing Bant Toxic. So this deck plays a lot of cheap creatures that have Toxic, which gives you poison counters. And once you have 10 poison counters, you lose the game. And this is probably my worst matchup. It is definitely the deck that I did not want to face. So here, he bounced my Leyline Binding to get back his creature, and he just attacked me to put me at 9 poison counters before finishing me off by proliferating with an experimental augury. So yeah, I died super quick, and post sideboard I brought in some more interaction, some more removal, and some more blockers. But my hand was pretty slow, and he still managed to get that 1 poison counter on me before I got any blockers out, and he just started proliferating once more. I was getting overrun with poisonous mites, and when I had my removal spell, he of course had a counter spell. I couldn't even resolve a blocker because he had another counter spell in hand. And then he played his one-off Staff of Completion. This thing does a lot of things, but the main thing is that it proliferates. Proliferate! So yeah, he tapped it 3 times, proliferated 3 times, and I died. So that was round 4, which was the quickest round so far against Ben, toxic deck, a poison deck, which is, my deck is just a really bad matchup. So I lost. Well, yeah, it's good matchup for him, bad matchup for me. And yeah, so now it's round 4. Going into round 5, I have 1 win, 2 draws, and 1 loss. So I think it's not possible for me to make the top 8 cut anymore. But I'm still just going to play the last round and see how it goes.
Gentle reminder, if you wish to ID with your opponent, please go to Matthew.
Okay, let's go. The final round, and my opponent went down to 6 with 1 mulligan. From the start, it was obvious that he was playing some mono red build, but I couldn't identify it because he was just perpetually stuck on 2 lands. And I managed to ramp pretty quickly into an Archangel of Wrath, took out his creatures, and just kept attacking him for the win. Okay, next game. In the next game, he had a very aggressive start with Kumano, followed up by a turn 2 creature, but I still managed to ramp pretty quickly, and he was forced to play more creatures to try and speed up the clock. He got me down to a pretty low life total with some pump spells, making his creatures pretty big, but I cleared the board up with a Sunfall. And from there, I just played Archangel of Wrath into another Archangel of Wrath, which was backbreaking for him. I was just gaining so much of life and removing all his threats. So yeah, he just couldn't come back from that. So yeah, that's basically the RCQ for today, for me at least. The top 8 has just been announced. I came in 13th place, which honestly I think is not bad considering I've only been playing for a few days. But yeah, I hope this video has been helpful and informative for some of you who maybe want to come down and play in the shop events, whether it's daily events, weekly events, or bigger weekend tournaments like this. You can always head to the Wizards site to check out what events are happening around you. And most people are here mostly just, of course, to try and win, but also to have fun, meet new people, or hang out with their friends. And yeah, it's a great experience. I highly recommend it. And please, if you enjoy this, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time when I win.